love we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough and it seems like your best ain't good enough, if you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, today comes with a bittersweet. There's a memory that I'm going to share with you, but it has nothing to do with what we're going to be talking about today. But the last time I saw Mike Young, I was able to be with a friend of mine who just passed away. And that's why this classroom today is being premiered. We were pre-recording so that I could be in another location. But he is why I do this program. This is why I do what I do, because when you look at life-changing situations, unfortunately, it might take a health crisis in order for people to say, what can I do naturally to change the outcome of my diagnosis, or the outcome of my health crisis, or the outcome of what my parents taught me how to eat and live and drink and eat. All those things create our current situation and 20 years down the road, as Dr. Furman says on the show all the time in the classroom, which he'll be on tomorrow, by the way. And so today I asked, back in about a month ago, I met Mike Young. He is the founder and of a plant-based diet.org. So it's a plant-based diet.org, and I'm making sure that I'm saying it correctly. He is a lifestyle nutritionist, but he wasn't always this. It came to him when he himself became a generational pattern shifter. He made a decision to change his life. And when I met him in Ocala, he was doing an event for Dr. Will Tuttle, who's been in the classroom as well. A World Peace Diet. For those of you, great class if you want to go back and watch it. So today I get to sit down finally with Mike Young to talk about his mission, his vision, and why he does this. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Mike Young is here to do just that. Welcome, Mike, to the classroom.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I'm glad that you're here too. So share a little bit about your background and what led you in this journey to be promoting a plant-based diet at plantbaseddiet.org.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I am Mike Young, as you mentioned. That's my real last name. I'm 53 years young, and really, I'd say it's centered around health and longevity for me. I have a long story, which we could talk about, or I could just give you the very short version, which is I've always been very different. I never liked eating animal products when I was growing up, much to my parents' dismay. They thought I was going to get, all kinds of illnesses and things like that, which I didn't really ever have. But then as I started to get older, I started to succumb to some peer pressure, started eating more like the standard American diet. And by the time I turned 30, I say between my teens and my 30 years of age, is when I kind of got into the pattern everyone gets in, really. And Went to my doctor, said my cholesterol was 201, a little bit high. So I didn't understand what that was. And that started the real journey for me. Even though I had those parts in the beginning where I couldn't bear to eat animal meat and things. I couldn't understand why someone would choose to eat that. I just thought it was disgusting. Then I make the connection. And then, of course, as time goes on, that was 23 years ago, I've gotten better and better. We started the nonprofit in 2014 when I finally gave up animal products after giving up some of the other things that I thought were bad for my health. I kept going in the journey. And, now I'm in my 50s. And unfortunately, almost everyone I grew up with has some type of chronic illness. And I don't. So that's what I want to get out to people, the message that you can take control of your own health. There's a very specific way to do that. And as you mentioned here just a few minutes ago, it has a lot to do with how you were raised and your habits. And I know a lot of folks will say, well, it's my genes. Well, the genes, of course, probably, I think we all know at this point, the expression of your genes can be changed by the information or the food that you provided. So
yes.
It's complicated, but it's doable. And that's our mission as a nonprofit, really, is to make everyone's health as best as can be, because that's when you have so much fun. That's when you have the most fun. And that's what we want from people.
As a coach, I get so many people say when we're looking at change, and they'll tell me, that's who I am. And I always, without skipping a beat, I'll say, no, that's what you do. And so we get to change our perspective of what life is like. And when you said, when I first met you, and you said, I wrote a book called You Can Live to 150. And I'm thinking, okay, unless you're Methuselah and you're planning on like really superseding everybody that's ever lived on this face of this earth, how would you come to that conclusion from the research that you've done?
All right. Well, most of mine is based on my own personal experience. And then let me just give you the general gist of why I believe it's 150. Well, as we all know, by the time you get to your 50s, almost everyone out there is chronically ill. And it's usually a lifetime. It's a downward spiral. And of course, I am so thankful now to have the knowledge that that is not anyone's destiny. In almost every case, it is a personal choice. And it just only requires an open mind to consider something different than we were instructed when we were growing up for generations. So if I go on the idea that I recognize that everyone was taught wrong and that this is complicated and we're doing so many things wrong, it's not just one or two things. It's like most things are being done wrong, yet we still live to about 75 years of age. Now, I mean, the body has a real will to live. And in the book, I know this can be controversial, but I call the general concept here abuse, self-abuse. I believe that we are all taught self-abuse. We don't recognize it as that. We recognize abuse in other facets of our life, but we don't seem to recognize it in this. So if we're going on the idea that we're constantly abusing ourselves at least 3 times a day at every meal and in between with the other habits, we're still living to 75. Well, what if we did everything the best we possibly could? Took all the knowledge that we have and put that to use. I'm not saying everyone has to be perfect. There is no perfect that I know of, but we're still learning. We're constantly learning. We're learning more. Well, let's just do the best we can. Well, we should be able to double our lifespan, I believe. If we're going from one extreme to the other, that's what I believe.
Hey, listen, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I'm all for going to 150 if it's a healthy 150. I know Dr. Joel Fuhrman. I think you know who Dr. Joel Fuhrman is, and he's a regular since 2015 in the classroom, and he says 120. So I thought, okay, when you were saying, oh, I wrote a book of and like 150, oh my goodness, that's great. That's even greater. I want to know the secrets. I want to know a little bit more of what your journey has led you. And I know that you say you're a work in progress, that you're still in your journey, just like I'm in my journey. And it's funny that you would start off saying, I was different than my family.
Yes.
I've said that about me too. And a lot of us that say that, we're like, generational pattern shifters. That's, when you said that, it's a true, it was a like what do you connect? A connection of knowing that sometimes when you make these decisions to change your lifestyle, it's because you're saying what I've learned at home isn't making sense to me. For me, what caused me to move away was the fact that I had chronic stomach problems, chronic, especially when my dad would buy a whole freezer of a cow, and we would have T-bone steak, all the different parts of the cow. When I was 16 years old, I was rushed to the emergency room many times because I was bent over in agonizing pain. Well, later found out it was gastritis. Later found out I didn't produce enough acid in my stomach to digest require the acid in my stomach to digest the food. And it was really hurting me. But that right there, when I learned about this girl that was a vegetarian and she had all this sugar, and I also ate a lot of sugar when I was younger from my parents, who my mom taught me how not to have diabetes by teaching me how much sugar she ate, it helped me and it encouraged me to say, I want, if she looks great, if she goes without meat, let me try that. So it was a little bit at a time, a progress at a time, where you lose a little bit more and a little bit more, and you're willing to try something different and new.
Hmm.
Now, saying that, when I announced that I was not going to eat animal products, my parents probably would have wished I would have said, I'm leaving my religion or I'm leaving my faith, than to leave food. So how was it for you when you're making this decision to walk away and say, listen, guys, I'm going to come over to eat dinner, but I'm not going to eat your animal products. How was that received? And how do you advise someone new that would like to try this? How would you advise them to go about it?
All right. Well, you're talking about someone that's wanting to make a leap, it sounds like, right? They
Yeah.
want to go fully plant-based. Actually, we're working on some resources for that right now, because that's one of the biggest questions we get at the events and things that we do is, how do I do that? I'd say that, I talk about, in the book, but just as a general life axiom, you have to just have an open mind. That's truly what's required,
Mhm.
because you have to do your own research and not be influenced so much by the people around you. Because especially when you're starting off, and this is another important concept, you probably are aware of this, you become like the 5 people you hang around with the most. So if you're already hanging around with people that are doing things in a way that you don't want to do and you want to make a change, that's
Mhm.
the most difficult time.
Yeah.
It's trying to get that habit changed. There's nothing more difficult to do than change any habit.
Mhm.
And you've got to make sure that you've convinced yourself internally. There's a psychological aspect to this. I would say that you really have to be able to transcend. And because of this, most of like in my book, Live to 150, most of the beginning chapters are talking about the psychological aspect, because I
Mhm.
say that even if I tell you all the information, if you haven't done that work internally, you're not going to be able to make the progress that you want to make. So I'd say one of the reasons we started the nonprofit back in 2014, when I went fully plant-based, is I didn't know anybody that was fully plant-based. So right away I said, well, there's a need for events, public events, restaurant events, events at farms. There's a need for social media communities online. Of course, you have your video content here. We do as well. I mean, there's all these different things, and I do believe also that yes, it's very difficult for an individual. As you're asking me this question, how does an individual do this? But I think that this is the future. Actually, I know this is the future. And once we get to a tipping point in society, it will become very easy for people to change over 100%. And now maybe someone doesn't want to change over 100%. Maybe they just want to make plant-based eating a large part of their life, and that's fine too. In this transition, it took me years to transition. I didn't just I told you in the year 2000, it was 23 years ago. That's when my doctor told me my cholesterol was high. But it wasn't until 2014, right, that I actually totally gave up animal products. And even then, I don't necessarily believe that just giving up animal products is going to
Right.
provide optimum health. There's many
Right.
more nuances to this, and that's why we have, like, through our own nonprofit, what we call certified healthy vegan food. Like, I can't, or we can't in good conscience call something healthy unless it meets this minimum baseline. And that's not the end all be all. That's just a minimum baseline.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I want to go back to the point of 150 in your calculation and how you've derived to that. And
Yes.
you mentioned that humans, we're living to 75, even though we're abusing our body. And of course, we're not looking at it as abuse. We're looking at it as living life to the fullest, because, people come to my house and
That's who I am, right? Like you said, that's who I am.
so when people come to my house and they say, "Oh, this is to die for," and I go, "No, it's to live for. It is to live for." So the food that you choose, choosing foods to live for. So we can make those choices. Now, you talked about animals. Animals they cannot adapt. And we're seeing animals die earlier and earlier and earlier because their food is being altered like our food has been. And so we get sick and then we take drugs. Our animals die. They're dying early. And if you had an animal that has died early, you may want to look at your diet as well. And so that's just a little tip. I wanted to go back to that. And I'm excited that you have certified healthy vegan program or food that you label certified, because the vegan community is doing the same thing to food as the standard American diet has done to food. So let's talk about how not all vegan or not all plant food is the same.
Okay, well, I talk about this in the book too. I would put things into two categories. There's food, as your body knows it as food, all right, not your taste buds. And then there's food-like products. Now, most everyone is eating food-like products. That's the problem. And nature, in my opinion, has designed plants to satisfy our needs and allow us optimal health. I mean, of course, if you look at the package of almost any plant, you see lots of water, lots of fiber, and lots of nutrition. And it's all in the right amounts. It's got sodium in there, so you don't need to add salt. They've got some level of fat. They've got all the different vitamins and minerals, as long as you're eating a wide variety of plants. So the problem is that most of the food people eat, is devoid of fiber and devoid of water. Most people are chronically dehydrated, actually, because of eating the food-like products. So that's a concept that people need to understand, is what actually is food. And that's why we came up with the healthy vegan food, because we figured, well, this could still be considered a type of a processing, a minimal processing, all right? Like cutting up things, blending them. These are minimal forms of processing. That's okay. Once you get away from that, then you're into food-like products. So actually, when you look at our definition of healthy vegan food and what it means, and if anyone's interested, they can go to healthyveganfood.info. It goes to our nonprofit website, just a tab on there. They can see what the requirements are. And as long as you're eating food and not food-like products, that's when you're going to optimize your health. So you have to get very specific. And like you said, I fully agree with what you said, that most of what's happening with the vegan movement is, it's almost like, this is the way I've been explaining it to people recently. It's like I remember watching What the Health movie years ago, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, we've been lied to, we've been tricked. I'm so upset. What am I going to do? Now I've watched that movie again recently, and I'm like, they've done it again. All this vegan food, we've been lied to and tricked. And I'm like, it's a very difficult spot to be in, because I see the evolution, I see people moving forward, but then we're back into that same dynamic that we thought we were escaping from.
Yeah, very true. I remember when I saw What the Health, I'm like, they're promoting sugar and they're promoting all this crap just for the sake of being vegan. That is not healthy. This is not.
Yeah.
So when the whole food plant-based community evolved itself, and I'm talking to Esselstyn and Campbell and Rip and all these people, and they're saying, hey, we had to divorce ourselves from that. So what is the selection criteria that would give a thumbs up from your foundation?
All right, well, let's talk about what it means then, you're asking. Of course, there's no animal products.
Okay.
There is also no alcohol in anything. Unfortunately, alcohol is a group 1 carcinogen. I encourage everyone to do their own research on that, but it's bad. I know everyone grew up with it too. So, all right, the other things are, it's got to have no added oil, no added sugar, and no added salt. When I say sugar, it's refined sugar. Actually, there's a few things you can use, but as long as it's going to meet these definitions, it's good. The other thing, and we also have added in there recently, is that it has to have actual plant fiber. I know a lot of people think, well, I can take a fiber pill and make up, and no, it's not the same. It's got to be actual plant fiber. There has to be actual plant fiber in there. This is, I'd say, one of the real health crises of our time, because if you look at online, you'll easily find a Harvard study that shows that 95% of humans do not get enough fiber on a daily basis. That's going to cause all kinds of chronic health issues.
Yeah. I was just recently talking to somebody, and I don't know how this conversation started, but we started talking about bowel movements, and which usually happens when you're talking to someone who's whole food plant-based.
That's
but
right.
not with this person.
Happens a lot.
And so they said, what? 3 or 4 times a day? What? She goes, I'm happy if I go every other day. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not
Totally.
good.
You got to go number 2 at least once a day. That's why I tell people. I have a whole chapter on that in the book, just focused on that. Actually, I think it was red flagged by YouTube, actually, because I used the S word in the title there.
Oh.
I won't say it here, but I just want to get people's attention if they were searching online. Oh my gosh, I need to do this once a day at least. And yes, yeah, you do. Otherwise,
Go ahead.
there's a problem. I mean, that's your body telling you things are good. It's a system, right? It flows through. So
yeah. Just recently, in the last 2 years, I was told that I needed to have my gallbladder taken out, stat. And it was because I looked back after not feeling well and going to the bathroom, and the poop was white. And I'm like, that's not normal. And I started searching. And by the time I went to the doctor the next day, I knew exactly what I had. So they did the search. They did all the stuff that needed to be done. I went there fasting. I knew what I needed to do. I went there. They had the blood work. It was just like perfect. I left there and had my ultrasound done. And then the results came back. You need to have your gallbladder out. You need to have and by the way, while we're in there, we're going to also take out your appendix. Anyway, so I called one of my regulars in the classroom, Dr. Jennifer Grameth, and she said, you know what? They told me the same thing 5 years ago. What you need to do is a cleanse. She goes, if you trust me on this one. I said, do it. Let's do it, because I can't eat anyway. So I did a 3-day fast and a 1-day cleanse. We have it now. We sell it at whenyouneedafriend.com for people to do it themselves. And let me tell you, I felt better within 24 hours. And by the time I was done with this cleanse, I went back later on to have the CT that they wanted me to do, and everything was clear. I just wanted to confirm that everything was clear. And I hear people that have their gallbladders taken out, they do all these things. They have to take supplements for the rest of their life that they're not being told about. They have health issues that they're never told about. And also they are, sometimes there's complications from the surgery that cause them to get even sicker. So, the body knows, and it will show us even through our poop that it is okay, or if it's not okay. So
I fully agree. Yeah,
yes.
that the body always wants to live. The body always wants to heal. The body always wants to remain in a state of balance. And in my opinion, all these diseases are simply like the check engine light coming on, saying, hey, I need you to look at this. I need you to look at this. It doesn't tell you exactly what. And of course, unfortunately, many times when you go to the traditional systems that we have for medical care, they're only going to manage those symptoms. They're never going to think they could find a root cause or a cure or healing.
Yeah.
But I do believe that in most cases, I'm saying like 80+%, okay? Not everyone, but there's always outliers. I'm just talking about most people. Those are just warning signs. Just trace it back like you did, right? Figure out what's going on. And if there's a blockage there in the system, of course, your body's going to complain. Why wouldn't it?
Yeah. And normally I don't even look. I do now. I don't know what made me look. Maybe it was because I wasn't feeling well. I had a fever the day before. I was throwing up the day before. And it took me 3 times. The first time I looked, I thought, it was like in the middle of flushing. I'm like, that's weird. Second time, I'm like, that's not right. And the third time, I'm like searching what is this? So we all get to be our own MD. We get to be our own medical detective, and our body is constantly giving us signals. What are some of the tips that you can give people to look for those signals, to look for, evidence that they're getting better.
Better. Okay. Well, a lack of anything that's going to be of concern. Let's put it this way. I am 53. I haven't been to the doctor and I cannot remember when, I don't have any concerns. And it's a matter of learning your balance point in your body. Everyone's body always wants to remain in balance. So one of my gifts, I suppose you could call it, because I think maybe you and I are very similar, is that I'm like the canary in the coal mine. I cannot let my body get out of balance for anything more than a very short period of time. And it starts complaining so vehemently. And I can't ignore it. And I got to figure out what's going on. I got to bring it right back. And I'm not in a disease state or anything, right? I mean, I'm just getting a little bit out of that balance point, because this life, especially the food, is so specific in terms of optimization. So that's what people have to look forward to, is an absence of feeling bad, just feeling great all the time. Like I said, having fun. If you're having fun all the time, you're feeling great. You don't feel like you ever, I don't know, something isn't right. Like you said, you had a feeling something wasn't right. Well, of course, act on that. Something isn't right. But that's what you have to look forward to, is an absence of those feelings of concern and uncertainty and just general not feeling well and these little symptoms here and there. I don't have any of those. And I think that everyone should be able to live a life like that.
That is so true. And as a matter of fact, I remember when I was going through that, and I know that and when I coach somebody, I warn them of this, especially if they have cancer or some disease that requires further treatment that is chemically induced, that is not what the body recognizes as health. I always say that once you go to the doctor, you will fall into a white coat trance, because they will breathe fear onto you. And that happened to me when they said, oh, you need to have your gallbladder removed. Like, I needed to be called back. And that's why I reached out to Jen, Dr. Gramuth, because I needed to be called back into this so that the fear would go away and my love for what I do and who I am would supersede. So my essence needed to supersede my fear, which is my ego, and my essence, which is the love in me and the divine that has been bestowed upon all of us, not just me, that speaks very loudly than the fear. So with that in mind, that white coat trance is what gets people in trouble in the future. And I'm not saying this to be critical of the medical industry, because listen, if I got into an accident, I broke a leg, or I need to be patched up, or when you see white poop, you do want to go and check things out so that you know that your body is asking you to change. So most people go through a life crisis. And so that's when they're being asked to change. So speak to someone who is going through a life crisis right now, or thinks that they've seen their parents go through life crisis and they don't want that for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, right away, I need to go back to the psychology. But before I do, I would talk to this person. I would say, look, assuming that what this person's telling me, I need to hear a little bit about what they're going through, is something that fits this 80% category, where it is within your control. It's haltable, it's reversible, it's usually preventable as well. If it's one of those diseases, which is most diseases, then I will say, look, I have some information for you. If you want to listen to this, if you're open-minded enough to consider a large amounts of change, then you can potentially look at healing this condition. This is not a lifelong sentence that you're going to be forced to do. But then, someone has to be open-minded enough to accept that that's even possible, because most people don't even believe that. And then once they do, then we need to talk about the psychological aspects, because everyone is going to be telling you, like you mentioned the white coat syndrome. I mean, but even if that person doesn't have it themselves, all of their friends are going to be, oh, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I can't believe, someone has to be have the mental fortitude to be able to persevere through hearing that from almost everyone that they know. And that's just where we are in society right now. I don't believe that society will continue in this way. I do believe that we'll reach a point of enlightenment where most people will be thinking this way, and we'll look back at this age that we're in right now, and it'll look like the dark ages of some sort. So it's difficult now, and I provide hope for people. I provide hope. Like I said, I talk about having fun, enjoying life, like really, truly being able to do whatever you want. You don't have to go to doctor's appointments. You don't have to go filling your prescriptions all the time. And and let me also mention again, just to clarify, I'm talking about 80% of the illnesses. I talk about the 80-20 principle in the book a lot. 80% of the illnesses are really just manufactured by someone's lifestyle. All right. So those are the ones that can be healed because there's nothing, it's not, you just have to change your habits, right? It's the other ones like you get in a car accident or some freak things happen, which does happen. And I wish it never did,
Yeah.
but I'm not talking about those.
Yeah, it's so important because, people tune out when they go, oh, you mean 5% of disease is due to your DNA, 5% or 1%. It all depends, and then all of a sudden they just tune you out because they believe that this is something they inherited. What they don't know is what they inherited was the family recipes. What they inherited were the family behaviors. What they inherited were the traumas. That's what that has continued on with them. When you can, twin brothers from the same parents, identical twin brothers, both parents are alcoholics. One twin decides not to ever drink and the other twin decides to become an alcoholic. And if you ask both of them why they chose that path, they would say, how could I choose anything else? Because one followed what they knew that they were doing, and the other one said, I don't want that for myself. I want something different. That's the generational pattern shifter in us that we get to choose. And when I see my parents go through, the diseases that they're going through, it breaks my heart. But I know as a parent that if I was a teacher to save my kids from a future of illness, I would take it for myself. I want our next generation to be healthier than us. And you say you're 53, I'm 60. I'll be 60 on May 14th. And I feel healthier now than I did when I was in my 30s. And I don't have a 100% perfect diet, but I am almost there. I am probably 80 to 90% there. And, and I say that when I do that 10% and I'm having whatever it is that I'm having, it's not as bad as the people that are eating, worse than I am. And not to judge it or rationalize my behavior, but when I think back at how I was back then and who I am today, that 10% is nothing compared to the 10% that the 20% or the 30% that was there before. And that's why, Mike, I am so excited about you being in the classroom and also us talking about some of the different things that are happening in the classroom today. I want to encourage you to go to whenyounneedafriend.com. If you're a subscriber, you have all of Mike's information. You've got it in the blog, and all you have to do is click on his name, and it'll take you to where you need to go. However, if you're not a subscriber, I want to encourage you to go to whenyounneedafriend.com. Please become a subscriber. And while you're there, please like and follow me on all social media. Go check out my sponsors, because without my sponsors, it would be very difficult to do this program for you for free. So I want to encourage you to support them the way that they're supporting the classroom. Also, you can go to my shop, my Shop Now bag. My Shop Now bag has all Lily approved products. There's from healthy beauty products to how to manage pain without taking a pill. As you know, my registered service mark is you can take a pill or you can take responsibility. It's not that I'm against the pill, is that I'm for doing everything you can to live the life that you want. Now, you can also go, while you're at whenyounneedafriend.com, to my workshops. As you know, we have lots of do-it-yourselves. I talked about the gallbladder workshop that we did. There's a vegan, going raw vegan. We did a 1-month raw vegan challenge. I was challenged to go raw vegan back in 2000 and I think it was 2013. And after that 1 month of the 4 days of doing it, I felt so good, but I didn't feel bad. I just didn't know I could feel better. And I want to encourage all of you to learn that you could feel better. Baby steps, like Mike said, baby steps. It took him some time to make those final things, but every time you take that step in the right direction is a step closer to that optimal health that you desire. When you also go to the workshop, we have the one on April 21st. It's right around the corner, guys. So that's the I Am the Solution workshop. It's a virtual workshop. It starts on Friday at 6 p.m. to about maybe 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Eastern time. And on Saturday and Sunday, it's noon to about 6 or 7. And we talk about the spirit, mind, body connection. It's a virtual workshop of continuing education of the soul. Many of us don't even hesitate to get continuing education credits for our careers, but many of us seldom look at our spiritual, our mental, our emotional component of life and how that plays a key role. You heard Mike say it many times. It plays a key role in our health as well. Food is good, not the end all be all. There's a lot more things, and we're going to be talking about that with Mike in a little bit. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom. So whether you donate $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation, whatever you can do, whether it's your time, your talent, your treasure, all of it is greatly appreciated. And so today we are talking to Mike Young. He is the founder of a plantbaseddiet.org. I met him at the Veg Fest. Well, actually, it was first they had a private dinner with Dr. Will Tuttle, and that's where I met Mike and his beautiful wife. And they gave us a tour of the farm, and it was just an incredible experience. And of course, listening to Dr. Tuttle was wonderful as well. And then the next day, we got to see him at the Veg Fest in Ocala. And so if you know of a Veg Fest in your area, please support it. Get to know a little bit more what it's like to kind of put animal products behind and focus on a plant-based. And so I love the criteria that you discussed before. But before we continue to talk about tips on longevity and health, would you like to share a little bit more about what's happening at plantbased.org? What are some of the things that we'd like to promote while I have you here in the classroom?
All right. Well, we just crossed over our 100th event, and these are all live in-person events that we do. We've done stuff online too, but we mainly organize live in-person events. Like you just mentioned, the Veg Fests. These are kind of our entry-level event, right? It's in a public space. There's no cost for attendees to show up. We've got vendors there, food products and services, all plant-based, 100% plant-based. That's what makes it different. And we have education. We have speakers all day. It's all outdoors. People just walking by, see us, and then maybe they get to learn a little something or they're curious. And so those are our Veg Fests. We do, I think, 12 of those a year up and down the East Coast between DC area and Southern Florida. Naples is as far as we go south right now. So if someone wants to learn about all of our events, actually, you can go to plantbasedevents.info. That's our calendar, plantbasedevents.info. But we have already on the calendar all of our events through the end of the year. I'm working on getting the ones for next winter in Florida. We're still working on that right now. So Veg Fest, we do about 12 of those. We do the Plants to Table, like you mentioned as well, where I met you, which was awesome. Now that is like a next level event, okay? If the Veg Fest are our catch-all for the local community to kind of just show up and have fun outdoors, and look, we can have a festival, we can have an event just without the animal products, but there's also higher level speakers there. People get challenged on every level. Well, once you get to our Plants to Table, these are annual events that we have in an area that we usually will run a few festivals in. So like I met you in Citra, Florida, at Crohn's Cradle Conserve. It's a farm. It's almost 800 acres in size. It's between Ocala and Gainesville. So we do festivals there. We figured let's develop a relationship with a local organic farmer. So that's what these are about. So not only is all the food at these events meeting our minimum healthy vegan food requirement, but also most of the food is sourced from the farm where we have the event. It's fully organic and it's gluten-free. So this is like a whole other level, right? So we got like the people that are super curious. They really want to take their game to the next level. They want to try to meet people like we met each other, people who are at this level, right? Because there's always more to learn. That's the thing. I realize, and I mentioned this in the book too, that no one ever stays the same. You're either getting worse or you're getting better. And if you're not getting better as you're accumulating the ages, right? The years, the quality years too. I'm not really concerned about quantity. I am concerned about quality. The quantity is just a
Yes.
benefit. Okay. So, but we need to get better because we all know from looking around, once you get to, I don't know, your 40s, it's like a downward spiral, a continual downward spiral for almost everyone. And we don't want that. That's optional. That's what I want to convey to people. That is completely optional in almost every case.
Mhm.
And that's why we're trying to do all this work out in the communities to kind of let people know about this. We also will work with restaurants as well. We will have restaurant events from time to time that are social gatherings that are not as formal or, as I say, pricey as the Plants to Table annual events.
Mhm. Mhm.
As long as I can find restaurants that are willing to have a special meal for us that meets our healthy vegan food certification. And that is not easy to do. I'll tell you that. I mean,
But you know what? The food was delicious, Mike. The food was delicious. The food that they made was absolutely phenomenal. And the dessert was to live for.
yeah, the wild orange pie, I think it was. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, and here's the thing, you probably know this too. Like if you know heard what I just said about how difficult it is to get any restaurant to offer a meal that's exclusively going to meet our requirements. Well, that's just where we are in society right now, right? Because that's the minimum that we can in good conscience say is healthy, even though people throw that word around a lot. And almost none of the restaurants deliver, like literally none. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, it's not a, it's, I'm just chuckling, I guess, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, we have we have a lot of work to do here, you know, but I'm very hopeful. I'm an extreme optimist. Like I said, that this will be how society runs in the future. This will be the standard, and we'll look back and we'll just be horrified that the average person was living like that.
Yeah. Well, from your mouth to God's ears. That is something that and you know, you talk a lot about the peer pressure, the bullying of your friends as well. And you've got to be strong. You've got to, you know,
Yes.
like my friend that just passed away, and she had so many chronic conditions. She
Mm.
had multiple sensitivities for chemicals, multiple chemical sensitivity, and had to live in a trailer for 2 years. She couldn't even bathe because of the chemicals in the water. That's how sensitive she was. And to
Mm.
see how doing it naturally and changing her diet and changing her lifestyle and changing everything about her, so inspirational. And she wasn't 90%. She wasn't 99%. She was 100%.
Mm.
She was, because she was so sick.
Had to.
And
Yeah.
to know her for 2 years and see how far she's come, that was just so beautiful. She was a great witness, and I dedicate this show to her because she was the one that told us about the event in Ocala, the Veg Fest, and invited us to the Farm to Table event, and we went to the you know, it's just wonderful that you would be the person that I would be talking to today,
Yeah.
because we are all together at this, you know, by the time the show airs, we'll be together, um, celebrating her.
Yes, and that's the thing. I mean, we realize this. I've realized it from early on. We're in such a spot in society that anyone who's willing to do that work, like you just described, is impacting someone else in a positive way. And then, of course, they know many people as well. It just continues like that, and that's what we need. It's a true grassroots effort.
Yeah, she did. And she, you know, she lives in the villages, and like whenever we'd get together, we'd talk about all these wonderful things that she wasn't able to, that people didn't understand. But that was her mission. That became her mission and her message. And she kept moving forward. Unfortunately, she was killed in a tragic accident, but her every moment of her life was dedicated to what you're talking about as well, because of her healing crisis. And so I just want to encourage all of you. Life is urgent. We never know when that moment's going to live. And people tell me all the time, and this is something that really gets to me, Mike, and it still gets to me all these years later that I've changed my lifestyle, is, you know, I start talking, when I start meeting this, they'll say, oh, I could not live without my meat, and I cannot live without my sugar or my pie. And I will say to them, but how much more important are you than a piece of meat? How much more important are you than a piece of pie that can be recreated and taste even better? People
Mm.
don't get that. I don't think people don't get that. But I agree with you that there is a trend that people are becoming curious because they're getting sicker sooner and sooner. And this is
Mhm.
another thing that they tell me, and you can comment on it. The next thing that they tell me is that everybody's got to die. We're all going to die sometime. And I say, yes, that's true. But how do you want to live?
Mhm.
Because some people live for 20 years with tubes up their noses and sick and throwing up all day, anxious and taking a pill every minute. But the question is, how do we want to live? And you answer that at 150. And so go ahead and respond to my comments,
Yeah.
because I made a few of them.
Yes. Well, first of all, I have a chapter in the book called The American Dream. I think actually it sets everyone up for total failure in all these areas we've been discussing. I
Mhm.
feel like the dream of everyone is to get some giant house that you don't need, of course, full of a non-native lawn that's doused with chemicals and landscaping, and then you sit in your lazy boy watching your big screen all day or playing on video games, whatever the thing is now that people are doing, and
Mhm.
that's it. But that's a recipe for illness in like almost every facet of your life. So yeah, that this is difficult because we need people to recognize that these systems that are in place that have been refined over time, nobody ever, all these systems that we have in society are basically, they're degenerating systems, I suppose. They're not regenerative, right? I mean, I know so many folks are into the regenerative farming and things. This is where society needs to go. Not just farming, but we need to have regenerative real estate developments. Almost all the real estate is the same to me. We need to reimagine and re-engineer all these systems that were just randomly refined over time and have obviously at a point of massive failure. They're disappointing everyone because, like I said, if someone's, like you said, like they have to take their pills, they're ill, they can't do this, it restricts their freedom. Let's put it this way: they can't just go out and take a trip or go see somebody or get in the car and drive wherever. They are so held down by their own uh, lack of health. So one of the things I didn't mention yet is like we're working on real estate projects like in Ecuador and other places too. Actually, I've been talking with people now about things in Florida, North Carolina. We want to redefine what it means to actually have a home and live. The American dream, I don't, it's not a good thing. Like I said, we can redo it, but right now, like you've mentioned, when you say this to someone, the reaction that you get is like they're like, oh my gosh, I can't even consider that because no one knows anything outside of that. And that's just why it's going to take time. We just all need to be patient, yet we need to work towards this. This is the progress, right? We need to redo so many things, whether it's the mindset, the food that's going into people's minds and eyes. I'd say that's another thing I discuss in the book. That food matters. It's all these things. It's like, well, if someone's was constantly consuming this American dream or concept with through their eyes and ears their entire lives, well, we need to start giving them some different content to consider. And all it requires is an open mind. I know it's very difficult to find people, I'd say, but I will also say I'm very hopeful because in the time that we have been around as an organization since 2014, we have seen, like, let's say, veganism go from some fringe, I don't know anybody, or I met somebody like that and I never want to see them again or whatever, like, to now all the vegan foods are in every grocery store. I'm not saying it's health optimizing, but the ice creams, the milks, the cheeses, the meat substitutes. This is just since 2014. Before that, it was only tofurkey and maybe something else. That was it, right? I mean, so a lot of progress has happened in a short period of time. So again, I guess I wouldn't be in this movement unless I was an extreme optimist, and I am. And we're just going to keep pushing the envelope from where we can, keep our audience, hopefully keep broadcasting out to the communities that we serve. And it's only a matter of time. I can envision it, right? Where everyone is just living so much better, enjoying life, having so much fun. That's what it's about. To me, I don't care if you have perfect health. If you're miserable, you know, maybe that's what the person was alluding to, the example you brought up. Maybe they're just miserable internally. And then, well, why would it matter if I'm any better health-wise? Because it's going to prolong my misery. Well, actually, that's another thing I talk about in the books, having a life purpose. Everyone needs to know what their life purpose is. Most people are not talked about. This concept is not discussed in growing up. It's just talking about, okay, what career are you going into? It may have nothing to do with your life purpose. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
So you need to figure that out. You need to learn how to properly set goals and attain them. All this is in that book I have, just free, Live to 150.
And how can they get the book, Mike?
Just go to live to150.org. It's available on our website. It's actually a playlist on our YouTube channel, and it's very long. I want to prepare you for this. 152 videos. It's got 150 chapters, 2 introductory chapters. If you go to liveto150.org, you will see them all in order. You can listen to it in your car. And that's what I would say. Listen to it in your car. Stop playing. The reality is it's different levels, but it's still probably different levels of garbage that the average person is feeding their eyes and ears all day. Why don't you put this book on instead? Just let it play on loop in the background. I think after a while, you'll realize that you're starting to think differently. Maybe I gave you some nuggets there that sparked something in your mind. You're like, okay, maybe I need to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a technique.
Absolutely. So that's liveto150.org.
That's it.
So I will put the link below so that you guys can start your journey. I also have the link below in the description. When I say below in the description, so if you want to join us in the I Am the Solution, this is where we rewrite this programming that Mike's been so eloquently speaking about, how we've been fed a bunch of lies. And what if everything that we believed was a lie is true? And what if everything we thought was true is a lie? So we get to explore and be curious instead of critical about things that can be different in our life that will help improve us and our journey. Before we go, we have about 5 minutes left, Mike, and time has just gone so fast. I would like for you to share some of the pitfalls that people fall into because they want to do, like, for example, I've done this show with Dr. Furman. He talked about when people are eating plant-based foods, there's certain supplements, certain minerals that they need to be aware of. What is your take on that? And I just want to address it because we want to set people up for success.
Absolutely. You can do anything wrong. Okay. That's why
I love that.
Yeah, it's so complicated. It is. So you need the general idea is that you need a wide variety of plants because you need to get all of your vitamins and minerals, and you're only going to get it by eating a wide variety of plants. Some of the pitfalls specifically, I'd say, even if you're doing the best job ever, you may not be getting enough iodine. Okay. And I don't want you to eat iodized salt to get that, but there's certain things like you can eat potatoes, and actually the darker the more iodine, like a sweet potato or something like that, they're in there. You can get sea moss. That's been a popular thing in culture right now about the sea moss. The main benefit of the sea moss is it's high in iodine. So make sure you're not deficient in something. The only thing, like I would say across the board, that you need to take is B12. I have a whole chapter on that, of course. But the rest of it, in most cases, can be solved by having foods that are rich in whatever nutrient that you feel you are lacking. And you can only tell by taking an inventory of what you eat all the time. So, I guess you're asking mainly about pitfalls from the food perspective. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, everything can lead to deficiency. If you don't, like you said, you can do anything wrong. But if it could lead to a deficiency. And so is there anything else? I mean, B12 is important. What about omegas, omega-3s, omega-9, 6s?
It's generally the balance. I have a chapter on that too. Generally, it's just the balance there. I don't want to get into too much detail now, but I don't think you need to take any animal products or fish oil or anything like that. You just need to not eat the bad stuff and eat enough of the good stuff. And I like for my own self, when I have a salad, I'll have flaxseed and chia seeds on there, and that will help rebalance. And you don't need anything else other than that. Just make sure you do that on a regular basis. Yeah,
and walnuts are really good as well. Okay, so you mentioned sea moss. You went there. Yeah. So how do you prepare sea moss?
Oh God! Oh my gosh! So I can tell you, one time I drank it without preparing. My wife said, "Hey, get some sea moss. Just put it in a smoothie." I'm like, "Okay." So I just got some and I put it in the smoothie. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever. I can still, kind of taste that. I'm like, my palate was messed up for a week after that, I'd say. So yeah, you have to go through a processing. That's the thing with sea moss, right? You have to kind of flush all that stuff from the sea out of there, especially the salt. before you can eat it. And I don't know the ins and outs of doing it, but there's all kinds of things online you can find about different techniques
Okay.
how
Okay.
to do that. But again, I'm more of I've always been repulsed by salt too, which is another thing. If you look at my own eating history, which is turns out to be great for me. So I'm not really attracted to sea
You're
moss.
very intuitive, Mike. You're very intuitive.
Yeah. So I prefer to eat like sweet potatoes and things, especially for that iodine. And like I said, that's to me, it's the main bit.
Yeah. Well, I will do that. Oh, we lost you there, Mike. Are you there?
Yeah, because the sweet potatoes give you that iodine, and without any concern about where this plant was growing in the sea, what was in the water, and especially the salt in there.
I'll get you. I will do that instead, because I see this sea moss and everybody's like the sea moss craze. One thing that I have really, because I did an M-Cube detox experience, it's the metals, microbes, and molds, metals, and microbes. It's a detox, and it was an experience for all of us. It's a 12-week course that I have at whenyouneedafriend.com. And we couldn't have noodles or pasta or anything to that effect. And I started having kelp noodles. How wonderful are kelp noodles? And of course, we know we can do it with zucchini and we can spiralize it and make it noodles, but sometimes you just want something different. But if I learned how to prepare it with baking soda and a lemon and rinsing it off and getting all that, making it soft like a noodle, it is so good. So if anybody wants that recipe, text me or email me. But Mike, it's been wonderful. I want to encourage all of you to go to not only a plantbaseddiet.org, but to also go to live2150.org and start learning that's a very generous 150 to learn how to live up to 150. And I think it's the attitude, it's the mindset. Not necessarily the age that you're looking at. You're looking at, if this is what we're doing now, it's not good. Can you double your age? Can you double your outcome in age by doing something different and tweaking your food? Any final words before we go?
Well, just that I feel blessed in a way to be able to transmit this information. Like I said, it's because I'm the canary in the coal mine, because I'm so sensitive, right? And I feel it before everyone else. And just realize that even if you don't feel like I could start to stray right away and I'll start to feel ill, right? I know the average person doesn't feel that way, but no one is immune from the negative consequences of poor choices like that. Just realize that even if you're hardier than me, because I'm sure you are, do something good and do it right for you, because you will benefit going forward.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being in the classroom. And everybody, please remember, you're in choice. Everything you choose will lead to health or will lead to disease. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Mike Young wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. I knew you'd have the best ever. Good job, Mike.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before